What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. In this episode, I'm going to give my review of the pilot episode of a brand new FX series titled Snowfall. Alright, so FX has done it again. At least at first glance, they've done it again. Because the pilot episode of Snowfall, in my opinion, was just fantastic. I loved everything about it. The casting, performances, writing, all that. I think I should start leaving that stuff out when it comes to FX shows. And I only talk about it if they get it wrong. And if they don't do good with any of those things. Because the way, everything that happens behind the screen, they're always doing a fantastic job. Even if the end result of every episode or the show isn't the best ever, all their decision making and who they're running their shows and who's writing and casting and all that, always on point. So I just kudos to FX for, I don't want to say quickly because FX has been in the running for a while making quality content, but the last couple of years, they have just been killing it. Where it's like almost everything they're putting on is just sucking me in, and it's giving me such an enjoyable watching experience. I'm having so much fun with FX. Alright, so Snowfall. This is a show that takes place in the 80s, South Central, right? So we're in LA. And we're dealing with the beginning of the crack epidemic. Now, this may not sound interesting to you, but let me just say, this show is very closely based on real life. Two of the three main characters that we meet in the pilot are people that I can actually tell you who, from history, I see their story resembling. So if, let's just say you're not a fan of, crime stuff or, inner city stuff or hood movies or whatever, right? If you're not a fan of that, but let's say you're a fan of U.S. history or you're just interested in things that are based on real life, even though they're not marketing this show as being based on a true story, it is. I think they're not marketing that way so that they can have the creative license to change and go in different directions and not be pigeonholed into following someone's exact true story, even though true stories are never exact true stories, right? But I think that's what they're trying to avoid is being pigeonholed in, so they're not marketing it as this is based on real life. But trust, look it up. Everything I'm about to talk about in this episode is based on something that actually happened in U.S. history, and that's the invasion of crack cocaine on the U.S. in general, but more specifically poorer black neighborhoods. Where it just ate through them like some sort of virus. All right, so this show is developed by and co-written by John Singleton. Those of you who know the name need no explanation. Those who don't, go watch Boys in the Hood, Four Brothers, which I really, really enjoyed. I know a lot of other people didn't. And various other movies. IMDb him. John Singleton. And if you haven't watched most of his movies under IMDb, start watching them today, because I don't think there's one movie John Singleton made, wrote, or directed that I really didn't like. Maybe some were better than others. Maybe some weren't my favorite movies. But I pretty much think, all of his work. So goes back to what I said earlier. This is the thing that FX does beautifully. They hire the right people to oversee the project. Now, when these big name guys are brought on, they're not always involved in every facet of the show running. Of making the show. They're usually not the showrunner. Like Martin Scorsese wasn't the showrunner of Boardwalk Empire, but he helped write it. He helped develop it. He helped bring the tone, the look, and create the world that the show lived in. And that's what most of these big name directors and writers that get brought on to help, work on one of these shows, that's usually their capacity. There's another guy that's in charge of the show running, and I'll talk about him in weeks to come. I just wanted to tell you about John Singleton. That way, if you had any reservations about watching Snowfall, maybe knowing that John Singleton was involved and how well he knows this genre and this history will suck you into giving the pilot a try. All right, so all that out of the way, we have 3 lead characters so far anyway, 3 mains. Most shows have multiple mains where one of them might stand out to be the bigger lead of the ensemble, but the other 2 characters are very important to the story, very, integral characters as well. Like Breaking Bad, Walt was your lead, but Jesse was a lead too. Walking Dead, Rick is the lead, but Shane was a lead too. You get what I'm saying, right? All right. So we have 3 leads. We have Franklin, we have Teddy, and we have Gustavo. And let's start with Franklin. He is I think, going to be our main lead. He's a young black male, I'd say about 17, 18. He's either in his last year of high school or he just graduated high school. And, he lives in the inner city, South Central LA, poor neighborhood. You know the whole story. You've seen it 1,000 times. But maybe not done as realistic as this, where a lot of other things show those areas as nothing but war zones, and then some kind of tamper down the violent aspect of those neighborhoods. Usually not. Usually it's the former, right? But this show, and granted it's only the pilot, seems to be delivering on a more realistic approach where it's hitting on all cylinders, giving us not just these violent, war-torn, neighborhoods, but that there's real people living in these neighborhoods, regular people, where everyone is not a gangbanger, a drug dealer, or a drug user. Though everyone that lives in these neighborhoods probably knows a gang member, a drug dealer, or a drug user. Not probably, definitely, right? But it gives us a more realistic view, in my opinion, of these type of neighborhoods. Now, Franklin seems to be a good kid, and I'm not saying his story is modeled on Freeway Ricky Ross. If you don't know who Freeway Ricky Ross is, and I'm not talking about the rapper, I'm talking about the guy that the rapper stole his persona from. If you don't know about him, Google it, because Franklin's story looks like it's going to pretty much line up with Freeway Ricky's story, in my opinion. All right, so we're going to get our point of view of the street level a part of the crack epidemic and how it affects real people, and not just in them using it, but in them selling it, in crack coming into their neighborhoods and knowing what crack does to a neighborhood. It's like acid. It eats through it. It just creates these gaping holes in every facet of your community. And we're going to see that through the eyes of Franklin. So we learn a good deal about him, his home life, and who he is as a person. There's not a lot of drug dealing or drug stuff in this episode with Franklin. There is some, but it's more of an introduction to him and how he's going to get tossed into this whole thing. And then we have Teddy, who's a disgruntled CIA agent. Now, most people, I feel, when they join the CIA, FBI, police, whatever it is, their hopes and dreams are not into working a desk job or being confined to an office. They want to be out actually involved in ridding the streets of crime or whatever it is, right? But Teddy, they don't tell you what, but he obviously did some bad things, and he's now been relegated to an office job. So he's taken off the streets and put into an office behind a desk where he does not want to be. And he's going to get thrown into this very similar to Franklin, where it's really not on purpose. It's kind of an accidentally trying to help somebody else out, and that gets him thrown into this world. So the 2 characters, Teddy, the CIA agent, and Franklin, the super low-level, soon-to-be drug dealer, their stories are very, very similar in many ways. The major one being, as I just said, the fact that they're both kind of thrust upon this crack epidemic and this world of drugs by trying to help out someone else. So Franklin is trying to help out a buddy of his score some coke, and Teddy is trying to help out a CIA informant, or I don't know what to call him, a guy that works with the CIA. Now, this is where we lend to real history here, because the CIA was heavily involved in bringing drugs into the country in the 80s through like the Contras, all this South American, Central American conflict that was going on. There was basically this under-the-table deal with guns and money and drugs and all this conspiracy theory stuff. That's all true. So the CIA agent, if you look at his story and you look into some of the CIA agents who were involved in the real deal, the real history of it, his story also has some very big parallels to that. So I think they're very much pulling from actual real world and real history, which is usually a good thing. It's always a good thing when you're dealing with this type of subject matter. So he tries to help out this guy. See, what happens is the CIA agent who's working with this Contra, this military guy from Central America, South America, he's trying to help him out. All right, so what happens is the CIA agent that's working with this guy ODs on coke in an actual pretty funny way. And then the Contra seeks out this other CIA agent who he's heard about to help him in dealing, in this dealings with the two governments, the government from his country and the U.S. government. And then this guy Teddy basically signs on for it, and he gets thrust into the world of drugs as well. And then that brings us to our third party, Gustavo, who is a nowhere near pro wrestler. It's like really bargain basement, under the ground Mexican wrestling that he's doing. But he's like hired muscle for the cartel. So he takes these jobs to do various things for the cartel. So right there in those three characters, we get the real story of the crack epidemic. We have the CIA who's bringing the coke, the drugs into the country. And then we have the cartel who will see their point of view through Gustavo, as we'll see the CIA point of view through Teddy. And we'll see, then we have the cartel who's bringing the drugs that the CIA brings in on the streets. They're the ones putting it out on the streets, right? Selling it to all these dealers. And then we have Franklin, who's a guy that would like buy the key and cook it up and then distribute the crack to the actual drug addicts on the street. So he's the street level POV. So we have all three of these perspectives on this one conflict that just basically ruined America during this time. Now, I'm a huge 80s and 90s buff when it comes to history, movies, music, everything. This is my era. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So I'm a little biased to this stuff. But I can assure you that looking through that bias, it's still a great show. This show could take place today and be about a whole different drug epidemic. It could be about the opioid epidemic, and it would still be hard-hitting and effective. So whether you're a fan of history or not, whether you're a fan of the 80s or not, whether you're the fan of John Singleton or not, if you're a fan of good storytelling and good cinema, good shows and good movies, then you will enjoy, at the very least, the first episode. I've only seen the first one, so I can't comment on the rest. But from the looks of things, they hit the ground running, and it looks like it's going to take off and be something amazing. So I really, really enjoyed it. I hope everybody gets onto this show. I want this show to blow up and be big so we get multiple seasons and we can watch it grow and see how these characters and these arcs and this and how this history affected us as an American people. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it's affected everyone. It has no boundaries, no color lines, and does not see race. So check this show out. It's grade A stuff, at least the first episode. I will be reviewing it from week to week for at least the first season, even if it gets bad. And hopefully we all enjoy it just as much as you all enjoy it, just as much as I enjoyed it. So sound off down below if you saw the episode, you saw Snowfall, you know anything about the history, whatever. You want to beat me up if I got any facts wrong, hit me up down below. I like to get a dialogue. I like to talk about this stuff. It kind of what keeps me smiling and keeps me going. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Always appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. That's it for this one. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.